it's cold. I gotta get this wood stove hooked up in here. Actually, I gotta get a whole bunch of shit done in here. And outside of here. Oh man, I can't believe how tired I was yesterday. I've done a lot more than I did yesterday and been less tired. But, got a good night's sleep, got caught up. Now, more voices being heard. I wonder how many people that makes angry. I don't get it. But on that note, it's easy to point out anger. A lot of people, I'll bet you what, 8 out of 10 posts on social media probably start out with, you know what pisses me off? You know who made me angry? So, quick reminder to make sure you focus on what makes you feel absolutely good, what you get excited to do, and focus on that. Alright, don't forget to focus on that, and you have to do what makes you feel good, right? No matter what, that's why we're here. But in the meantime, as well, you cannot overlook and look the other way when bad is being done to your community or your family, whoever, as well, right? So, you gotta even it out, balance it, and make sure you get your bare feet stuck in that grass or that dirt and ground your body out. That's important too. And get outside, move. Get outside, move your body. No matter what, no excuses. I'm just getting myself revved up. It's that time of year I start thinking about deer hunting. And one thing that does kill me in a way is not being able to go into those mountains that I'm very intimate with, where I was previously living around Whistler, British Columbia. Drives me crazy not being able to be there. I got a whole pile of trail cameras out though. Hopefully getting cool videos of a lot of the big bucks I became familiar with. And this is one of them. For anybody curious, this is a black-tailed deer. It's one of the largest ever harvested on record in British Columbia. Not that I've never put anything in a record book. It's not my thing. But I do love to, I love to single out, first of all, I like to discover that there might be something ridiculously huge and old and elusive like this buck right here. And then I will, then the game starts for me. The game starts. I try to figure out where they live, where they grew their antlers, where they were in velvet, where they probably go and they rut. Do they migrate? Do they stay? Are they up high? Are they up low? What do they do? And the amount of time is ridiculous. And the ride I went on harvesting this buck was absolutely, it was crazy. And I actually told that story in a video on the How to Hunt channel, I think. And it was pretty exciting. I think he's probably the third largest black-tailed deer I have ever been aware of for myself in the forest. And to give you an idea, Vancouver Island is genetically different for animals, just is. And this is what would be considered to be a monster Vancouver Island buck, black-tailed deer. So you can see the difference, right? Significantly different than the blood, the genetics on mainland British Columbia, those coastal mountains. But anyway, it's a quick note for anybody who's probably going to ask about him being right here, and I decided to take him down here and they'll hang out with me while I get people's voices shared, which is very important. It's very, very important. The finding elk for me has been kind of tough lately. The rut's kind of slowing down, and the Vancouver Island elk are almost no different than these damn things. They disappear in that jungle, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And they don't mind being in the jungle; they won't come out. Then you have construction on the logging roads contend with in this one place. We've been trying to find these monster elusive elk, bull elk, and videotape them. So I don't know. I'm running out of time, and I haven't nailed that wicked video and found that elusive monster. Well, I did a little while ago, but I just haven't pulled off what I'm trying to do. I want to find that elusive, absolute monstrous Roosevelt bull elk and get up close, steady, without him knowing I'm there, and obtain awesome, clear, high-def video of them being all natural and doing what they do, and then being able to share and admire that absolute gargantuan-sized animal. It's pretty exciting for me. Also, a quick note. What my stance is, a lot of people might think this is trophy hunting. You're a trophy hunter. You know, I'm passionate about the outdoors, and I love to, obviously, I don't know if I shared my freezer photo the other day or not. I put it online somewhere to show everybody what our hard work ends up paying off 2, and which is the freezers. The freezers are basically full of wild game and home-raised poultry. And that's number 1 for me. And when I can, I try to selective harvest. And just so you know my stance on what some people call trophy hunting, just so you guys know, when I have had hunters get up the bush plane in the past, and I don't know that they're not familiar with me, obviously I want to try to find the most large, mature animal I can that's lived its entire life, pass its genetics down, and harvest that. That's my main goal of all species. But anyway, just so you guys know my stance on the what some people call the trophy hunting, and you only shoot a first head, you think you're a big man, blah, blah, blah. My stance is, and I always try to drill it into my past hunters, is I have told them in the past, if you get off the plane today and you feel that you have a little pee-pee, and I get you the world record moose tomorrow, you're still going to go home with a little pee-pee, okay? And I've said that to basically every one of them, because I want to let them know that, make sure they know that there isn't a dead animal part anywhere on the planet that's going to change anything about you or who you are. It's just not going to, all right? What else have I said to them? I remember another one too ago, if you are a douchebag and you come up here to me and I get you the world record whatever tomorrow, you're still going to go home a douchebag. There's no way out of it. A dead animal part isn't going to save you from that. There you go. So just so you know, that's my stance on that end of it, if there was an end of it similar to that. But there's nothing wrong with being appreciative and obsessed with and excited about the game that we pursue to sustain our lives in a healthy way. The meat is so good for you. That's what we're intended to eat. And the act of going out and pursuing and harvesting it is absolutely healthy. It gets you moving, gets you connected with the real world, and it's all absolutely healthy and good. So there you go. Here's my little thing on hunting and the shit that I've saved from my hunting over the years and kept. It's a memory, and it would have just went into the garbage, right? Now, it's my morning babble. Obviously, I'm getting into the hunting mode. I'm getting into that mode. I'm ready. Getting ready. Now, what do we got? Who do we got to hear today? Everybody's important here. You mark this as red. A little chilly. All right. You can call me Woody, and this will run long, very long. 4,000 words, 6 pages, and 25 years long. Let's do this. I'll try to put breaks between Florida and the mountains. The motivation came from a Zoom call on Christmas with my sons. It has taken me several weeks, losing it in varying forms of completion, trying to write it in, and my antique email, and then my antique email, and then breaking down and doing it in a Word program. On that call, this subject came up. One of the sons that was with me, when he heard something yowl that was unexplainable, told me and them at the time, said, "No, Dad, that was just a gibbon." This made me understand how time can skew things, especially when someone is young when they experience it. So, what I feel I need to do is get them written down before the decades skew them even more. That's a good idea, and that's a good point to share with everyone. There are many experiences where I've bumped into these things so far, most in the mountains. One of them being where I had a spotlight and a rifle on it. They, he, she, whatever. These encounters run the gamut of the senses except smell. The most pronounced was a rather large log through my windshield on a remote private road in the mountains. Did you send those pictures to us? Because we have photos. Somebody sent us their vehicle with a log through the windshield. The first two were in the late 90s on a canal that is the boundary between Everglades National Park and the South Glades Wildlife Management Area. When the wind was blowing too hard to get out in the ocean, it was our favorite fishing spot for bass, peacock bass, and snook. My two youngest sons and I were using the electric motor and casting to the lily pads and snags when from the large cypress heard a very loud yowl. That, now my civil engineer, that now, my civil engineer son said was a gibbon. It was very loud, really loud, and very long, and was definitely not a gibbon, but was ape-like. It first did start like a gibbon, a whoop, 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 into a louder, tailing bovine, oh, with a guttural sound at the end like a bull makes in the rut. It wasn't any monkey I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot, seeing how several thousand got loose from Mannheimer Research Facility during the Hurricane Andrew in '92. It was also unlike any single noise I've heard any critter make before or since. Just after it finished, both my sons said in near unison that they wanted to go home now, Dad. Fast forward about a month later, and a friend of mine launched my boat on the same canal at 23:30 hours. I get off work at 2300 hours. I ran into the opposite end with my outboard motor and were slow trolling live bait back to the ramp with the electric motor. Since we're the only ones in the canal and we're only going to make one pass, we didn't feel the need for a spotlight because we both knew the canal very well. So, we only had a couple of not so bright headlights to just aid in landing fish. Just after the moon set around 0100, it was like someone turned the audio in the glades off. No frogs croaking, no gators grunting, no crickets, or any of the other preloaded sounds the glades have at night, which, trust me, are a lot. Dead quiet except for that whir of the Minn Kota. That'll be the electric motor. Then from the high side of the canal to our east, where the water management road is, and nothing for 10 miles but sawgrass, interspersed with scrub, cypress, oak, and the decades-empty Aerojet complex. Something jumped in the canal, something very large, like refrigerator large, and it was less than 100 yards from us and swimming to the same cypress I'd heard the yowl come from. When I say swam, I mean like a human swims. A very audible arm-over-arm stroke like humans do, but it only took 3 strokes to get across a canal 100-plus feet wide, 30-plus yards, past midnight with no moon, in water with some very large gators in it, toward the vastness of the Everglades National Park. It took only 3 strokes to cover the distance. Splash, 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 some rustling in the cypress, and gone. At that point, my fearless 6'4" buddy looked at me and said, "Did you bring your pistol?" I responded, "No." I asked him the same, and he said, "No." And then he said nearly the same thing my son said to me, "Let's go home now." End of Florida events. Fast forward a few years, I started taking the 2 remaining sons hunting to the mountains of western North Carolina, compliments of a fishing buddy that moved there. The other 2 were pursuing their lives, going to college, and raising families by then. When the last 2 follow suit, I completely trade fishing any and every body of water and get near for equal passion of hunting. The best part was my wife at 35 years so loved the area I started hunting in, we bought a cabin there, in the middle of a large national forest, a mile as the crow flies to the Appalachian Trail, and on the other side, another equally large national forest. Best part was it set us back the same amount a new 30-foot open fisherman would have. Everything went very smoothly for the first 4 years we owned it. There was one night in the first year where I thought I'd do the old wood-knocking thing while my wife and I were enjoying a nice summer evening on the porch. I didn't really take this subject really seriously then/yet. That is until something started knocking back. We still just blew it off as someone down the hall are messing with us. Seems we were wrong. On another occasion, one of my sons did hear what he described as someone mumbling outside the guest room window late one night. Still nothing to worry about. This place is fantastic, although that son refuses to sleep on the first floor to this day. Will not leave to hunt before daylight anymore. Bought a semi-auto 308 that has a 20-round magazine to hunt with and carries a pistol too. Now, to the meat of my experiences and the most potentially lethal. December 2016, one of my sons and I had been at the cabin for 2 days and had 2 deer hanging. On the second evening, he and I had an argument and he left. I continued to hunt and had 2 more deer hanging by the 5th day and 1 in the Jeep. On that evening, all hell broke loose for me on the private gated road to the cabin. It also made me lose any doubt on the subject. I was coming back from the store that was 20 miles away, 3 of those miles being gravel, forestry road, and the last mile private road owned by us land/homeowners. The stretch it happened on is our gravel community road that accesses 30 homes on over 1,000 acres. I just rounded the last red real curve onto a fairly flat stretch. To my left was a 1 to 3 slope with steeper areas covered with poplar, birch, pine, and patches of laurel thicket covering it. On the left, a sheer 20-foot drop with young poplar trees lining it with circumferences no bigger than 10 inches. In an instant, the windshield in front of me exploded. Being it was past 9 p.m., the temp was below 20 F, no moon, the gate was closed because I had to open it, and this time of year only half the houses are occupied. My only thought was I was being attacked by people that were meaning to doing very bad things to me. Since I couldn't run, I figured it was time to fight. And I was going to use everything at hand to make it as unfair as possible. If they're going to chuck things at me, I felt it more than fair to chuck stuff back, but much smaller and at much speed. So I got out with the indirect light from the headlights of my beater Grand Cherokee. That's the same vehicle in the picture, see in the picture. That indirectly lit up the thicket. I figured the thing in my windshield must have come from... Directly lit up the thicket. I figured the thing in my windshield must have come from. I started laying cover fire from my pistol so I could get the .444 bear rifle I kept on the back floor, hoping that whoever it was would flee when they realized I was not going to be an easy victim. Just as the slide locked back, I had the rear passenger door opened and retrieved the rifle, got it out, charged it, then laid the pistol on the roof. Using the roof as a rest, I realized I had 2 more problems. My ears were ringing, and the night blindness from the muzzle flashes of the pistol made the ambient light dimmer in the new moon light. After what seemed like an hour, it was probably less than a minute, straining to see or hear anything up that slope, I realized the pistol was empty, and the rifle only held 4 rounds, with 4 more on the stock bandolier. I did, however, have another magazine in the glove compartment. So, with one eye on the slope, I opened the passenger door, and this is when the full levity of my situation came fully into view. My driver's door, when opened on this beater Jeep, didn't turn the interior light on, but the passenger side did. There, embedded in the crotch of the passenger seat, was a log as big around as a coffee can, with the other end sticking out a hole that was 18 inches from my face 2 minutes ago, picture included. Then it hit me like a train and made me into a solid believer in things that can't be explained. There's no way a man or even a gang of men could have thrown that. There are also no trees here that it could have possibly dead fell from. Something just threw a log too big for any fireplace, like a javelin at me on purpose. Then I just shot 17 bullets at it the way we were trained to, Then I just shot 17 bullets at it the way we were trained to, only to get to a rifle, and now I have a rifle that seems barely adequate. So I did the only thing I could do. I dropped the magazine out of what I knew now was just a noisemaker. Put the fresh one in, then slipped back around the Jeep, and with my head stuck out the window, with the barrel of the bear rifle rested on the door, I finished my drive to the cabin. Holy shit. The next 2 nights were quite sporting, staying there alone, waiting for the windshield to be replaced. The days were quiet, but the nights were eerie, with the rocks and sticks bouncing off siding and roof, sometimes at random, but it seemed as I would just start drifting off, there would be some sort of a crack, or a knock, or a tap, or some noise that would snap me back awake. I describe it as character building and just how vulnerable a person can feel, even with what some would describe as an arsenal in there with me. Then there was the reality of I had my family's yearly venison supply of deer to skin a quarter. To add a little more sport to the mix there is by design no cell or line phone service in our remote mountain getaway. To get a signal on my phone took a hike up to a ridge on forestry land, so my calls were made quickly and hardware heavy. It is also not that easy to quarter out deer with a 45-70 on your shoulder. My youngest son, I mentioned him earlier, the gibbon call expert, was also graduating from college in a few days, and I needed to be 500 miles south to attend. After this, not willing to roll over and go away, so some upgrades were necessary. Different 4x4 with enough lights on it to light up a football field, upgraded hunting rifles, along with lots and lots of practical practice with them, and with Magnum handloads. But let me continue, because this ain't done yet. Actually, I'm not sure if it ever will be done. It was also between these years I found your and Dave's channels, so I added a personal locator with text capability. My son had forgave for my boorish behavior and went with me the next year without incident with all the new goodies. The following year, though, I got to see the furry fornicator, but this time through a no magnification 4 MAO red dot sight on a coyote rifle. We'd been at my friend's house and had gotten back to the cabin around 2300 hours. My son had to go to the bathroom. I grabbed a not real bright, but adequate rechargeable spotlight to check a coyote bait we had 100 yards from the front door and across a pond. Well, there wasn't a yote on the bait, but up in the slope from the pond and not far at all from where our driveway is, there was an eye glow. Not a red eye glow, but a defined pair of eyes glowing white. They were spread so far apart I thought it was two coons or possums in a tree. Problem: they were moving together and looking straight at me. They were also swaying slightly where one would go out the return. They were also swaying slightly where one would go out the return, like they were behind something. Oh, I gotcha. I raised the rifle and I supported it with my forearm and then put the dot just below the eyes. The eyes were noticeably on either side of a dot that covers 4 inches at 100 yards. So, whatever I was looking at had a spread between its eyes of at least 8 inches. I don't know of anything that has that spread except for what? Water buffalo? Elephant? Then something very odd happened. Actually, let's have a look. The buffalo, I've got a bison skull right there. Bison skull is probably looks to be 10 inches. Then something very odd happened. I felt peaceful. When I first saw the eye glow, I was trying to get my son to bring me one of the upgraded rifles. Then after I lowered the less powerful but still upgraded varmint rifle, I felt no need for the super heavy hardware. The rest of that trip went off without a hitch, but from that point on, I felt like we should leave the livers and hearts inside the cores after cleaning the deer. Then the next year, my wife and dogs, a taller retriever and a 4-foot-long, 20-inch tall, 100-pound Basset Lab, Mutt, started coming up in, and more encounters happened. When you say these things scare dogs, you are correct. Some are more scared than others, though. From the first night there, the two of them knew something very different. Some very different things were there, but they are suburb dogs and a bit naive. But now, one of them is scared to death to go outside at night because he's seen it up close because of his naive nature and charging into things head first. When he first got there, he leapt from the truck to frolic about like a wild dog. He loved the place. That was until he got a close look at Mr. Fuzzy. Now, when we get there, he tries to hide under the seat and has to be removed from the truck. If it's dark, he won't go outside unless he's on a lead. The first few days we were there with them was great for the taller retriever and the Bassador. They would alert like the FedEx guy was coming up to the door in all hours of the night. I figured it was a deer, bear, or some other critter their city dog selves weren't really familiar with. They really loved the snow, and seeing the Bassador bulldoze through it is great. And one night, they were going exceptionally nuts, so I let them out and followed them with a pistol and a headlight. The taller went blazing out the back door and around the corner of the cabin up to the edge of the slope where we had just that afternoon dumped 2 deer cores, liver and hearts inside and the guts separate. He thought Bai was on a mission to get whatever was invading his new playground. I rounded the corner of the cabin and get the light on him just in time to see him sliding to a stop at the edge of the drop where the carcasses were 10 feet below on the edge of the creek. When I say slid, he braked so hard, while at the same time trying to turn around his front end. While trying to turn around his front end, he didn't know where his back end was. Okay, there's no commas. I think I was missing a bunch of commas. That's why I'm fumbling a bit. Sorry, guys. At the same time, I heard something crashing through the laurels, lining the creek bottom, and it was heading up the creek bed and up the mountain. The taller went past me and back into the cabin like it was a lake and he was on fire. Funny thing is, the Bassador just hung next to me with his head thrown back, sniffing like a good hound would. I eased to where the taller just did his acrobatic act, and with the Bassador at heel, I peered over, and not one, but both deer cores were gone. The laurels going up the weak bottom, I think that meant creek bottom, looked like someone drove a small car through them. From that moment on, the taller would not go out after dark. For him, the new was wore off at the place when the sun goes down. Okay, so now we're winding down to 2020. On our way up, my dear friend who maintains the cabin calls me and says our 200-pound propane tank that we had filled the month prior was empty. Not only was it empty, but the supply line going up into the regulator on the outside of the cabin was pulled out of the fitting. To top it off, the tank's valve was turned off at the tank. My 40-year career in the domestic water treatment and distribution has made me quite familiar with every sort of connecting device used to connect the two hollow tubes together. From 1/4-inch flared copper control lines to 36-inch mechanical joints, I'm very acquainted with. He said it looked like someone yanked the gas line out of the regulator and the tank was empty. So I called the gas company, and $500 later I had the gas, and they checked for internal leaks. There were none. The technician had no opinion on how the line was yanked out. When I arrived, my buddy came up and we looked things over. I kid you not, something did pull the 6-foot-long, 3/8-inch flared soft copper line that went from the tank to the regulator out of it with such force it pulled the flare straight. It did this without pulling the regulator off the cabin siding and without kinking the line. Whatever did it then had to have the wherewithal to open the tank's valve after yanking the line out and then close it after the tank emptied. It also had to support the regulator on the side of the cabin that was only attached with some small wood screws. When I went to the gas company and asked them about it, their response was quite interesting. I had the fitting and the pictures in hand and worked my way up the chain to Mr. Gasco guy himself. It's a small town and I won't mention them by name. When I asked him directly what he thought did this, a bear, a vandal, before I get anything else out, he said, "You uns have that place up on blank creek, right? Might be Sasquatch." He then walked off and the receptionist just gave me a shrug. Well, that's about it. That was until 3 weeks ago. I got a call from my buddy up there. He and his sons were going to go up there for some guy time. When he went up to light the pilot light on the heater, it wouldn't light. Lo and behold, the gas tank was dead and empty again. Everything intact this time, but he said the valve was off, and the only thing on the cameras watching the back sides and front of the cabin were deer, bears, and turkey or two. This game playing is getting old and expensive. I'm starting to understand how we got this place for 30 cents on the dollar, and why the fellow we bought it from was wearing a pistol when we hiked the property. He only left the place with what he could carry in a Jeep Liberty, and even left his border collie. My friends there adopted him, and he lived the rest of his life at their house 7 miles away. Another thing about that place, they got it to their house. It never tried to go back up to the cabin. Sorry. Another thing about that, once they got it to their house, it never tried to go back up to the cabin. I wouldn't get out of the truck when they took him up there. I'll not let this critter run me off. I'll not be intimidated by it. I've worked through, cleaned up after, and rebuilt our home when needed after every category hurricane the Weather Service has. Duplicates on a few. I could listen the rest of the hard lesson life events. Sorry, why am I screwing up? I could list the rest of the hard lesson life events, but this is approaching 4,000 words and would be moot. Just want to have my place in the world, and they can have theirs. I won't take more game than I need for my family, and I'll feed those that remain in the lean winter months. Now, though my grandson and granddaughters will be coming up there, spending time hiking, hunting, fishing, chopping wood, learning to garden, and all the other skills that are dying in our country, I'll be damned if I let them take that from me. I don't want to start a fight with them, but if they push me to it, I'm very well prepared to give as good as I get. Oh, and my wife's no pushover either, and she is also a firm believer now. She served on a mobile nuclear missile crew not long ago in West Germany, and I'm sure she would have zero patience if she felt one of her grandbabies were threatened. I had sent snippets of these events to others on social media and posted in forums when I was more naive about this subject. Even been contacted by some researchers and entertained thoughts of inviting them up. Fortunately, I got bad first impressions and never gave my place's exact location. Then when I found your channel, started looking into the subject further, I fully understand remaining anonymous and keeping my place is paramount. Alright, your name's at the bottom. I don't think you said list your name. I'm not going to say it because you want to keep everything low key, right? Sorry guys if I was a little rough on that. It's just a handful of commas missing. It makes me stumble. It's not hard to make me stumble, right? Reading. And I don't know if you sent me that before a long time ago or not. I'm familiar with this story. I do remember the propane mention, and I vividly remember the Jeep with the log for the windshield. And I'll try to find that photograph and include it again. And that was a while ago, I believe. You should maybe possibly give us an update and let us know what's up, what's going on around there. If you're still content, experiencing all the things life has to offer in a good way that you're passionate about, with no problems, let us know. And if you did get to that point of existence, let us know how you got there. All right, let us know what's going on. If you're being harassed or picked on in any way, or what, right? There's a whole pile of people out there with problems on their private property. And as soon as, you read the part about the log getting tossed through the windshield, it reminds me just this summer, I ran into a friendly native guy on the Pachena Beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and he was doing work on the West Coast Trail before it opened up to public, him and a couple of friends, co-workers, and they had a cabin being beat on all night long. But he also mentioned to me that an uprooted tree was thrown at his vehicle while he was driving the Bamfield Road at nighttime. And he had to swerve to miss it, coming sailing through the air. I guess out of the darkness, whatever, obviously was thrown at him from ahead of him as he's oncoming to it, because he said he swerved to miss it. That'd be really shitty, right? Especially in the middle of nowhere, especially if you're connected and then you're stuck. God, that would suck. But anyway, there's another one, right? Appalachian Trail, I'm not familiar with it. There sure is a lot of shit going along it, right? A lot of people comment on their experiences near that place on the planet, the Appalachian Trail. Alright, I'll read this one, then I'm going to get ripping. It's got a lot to do. This is titled Ongoing. Hi Steve, you have finally talked me into sharing what has been happening to me. Good news. My name is Brian Heathcott. You can use my name. Please use my name. I'd be offended if you didn't use my name. You're a free man, Brian. Got respect for you, man. I may have brought this all on myself by buying a 4-foot Sasquatch statue and placing it on my front porch. It started in the fall of 2020 during the deer hunting season. I heard a loud tree knock, no further than 50 yards from me in the dark, while I was on the way to my deer stand. I froze and shined my flashlight in the direction of the knock, wondering what could have made such a noise. I heard nothing, saw nothing. The leaves were dry as cornflakes and there was no wind, just silence. I stood there for 2 or 3 minutes, confused. I walked about 50 yards or so and heard it again. Same thing, nothing. Except it was parallel to me, but a little further away. I heard it one more time after I climbed my stand, but now it was at least 150 yards away. I had heard a Sasquatch, but didn't know much about it. Well, now, every time I go out to my hunting property, this thing makes some kind of noise to let me know it's there. I haven't yet seen it. I've smelled it. Haven't smelled it, nor has it scared me. I've heard it roar, crash through the trees, shake trees, make animal noises, and grunt. It or they have been in my backyard and made a wah, wah sound. By the way, I live in Benton County, Tennessee, right on the Tennessee River. I haven't felt threatened in any way, yet. They seem to be friendly enough. Well, anyway, I found several broken trees, usually 2 to 3 inches in diameter, broken about 5 feet above the ground. Do not know why they show up suddenly or why they decide to make themselves known to me. Could it be the statue? I watch every one of your videos as soon as I can. I watch Scott C. and David P. regularly also. Thanks, Steve, for what you're doing. The more I watch you, the more I seem to have in common with you. About the same age and share the same attitude. I can't figure out how you managed to keep from blowing a gasket. Well, by the way, I did see one on the east side of the river, just standing in the woods about 30 yards from the road. It didn't move. I thought it was a large dead tree at first, except it was between 2 fire tracks. I went back and it was gone. It was about 10 to 12 feet tall, and it was colored like the Chewbacca. Sorry about this uninteresting story, but it's ongoing. I'm kind of grateful for the hairy man because he or they came along right after the pandemic and gave me something to take my mind off all those sheeple wearing face diapers. I worked for a power company and I had to get a religious exemption to avoid the... I told them that I would fight to the death before I took that damn shot, and I meant it. Thanks again, Steve, and I got your back. If you're going to start some shit, please give me a yell. I'm ready to kick down the gates of hell with you, and so are many of my friends. And so are many of mine, man. Ongoing. All right, well, that's a recent email, I think. So, I don't know. Are they letting you know they're there, or are they letting each other know you're there, right? Because I have a feeling sometimes when you go in the woods, you'll hear the bang, bang. And sometimes it's even the same amount of tree knocks as there are people present. So who knows? I don't know. Just be thankful they're not chasing you out of the woods and throwing shit at you, right? They're standing behind you in your deer stand and spitting on your neck like somebody's had happen to them. Or just stand there looking at you like they want to rip your face off from 20 meters away as you sit in your stand, which many people have had that happen too. That would suck ass. But anyway, on to the global events like what we just mentioned. I think I have a funny feeling there's a lot of good happening. There's a lot of good people fighting back. And I think the combination of many people trying to speak out loud and honestly is making a difference, right? There's a lot of pushback going on in the world, a lot. And I got a funny feeling that the good is winning. I think possibly because there's a shit pile of brave people out there calling out the bad guys, talking out loud and not backing off, and they're finding ways to keep talking out loud and sharing information with everybody. Which you can take what you will or leave it, right? But anyway, just take note, you guys, when people are sharing information with you, they're not doing it because they hate you. They're not doing it because they want to harm you. They're doing it because they want you to be aware of what may be going on that with some shit that affects you. That's what they're doing. So please, stop. Stop blowing a gasket and having a snap sandwich, all right? Think. Use your brain and think. If somebody says something that alarms you or offends you or you might disagree with, maybe man the F up and take about 5 seconds out of your time or 5 minutes and look into the subject a little bit to make sure that you are actually well informed previously anyway. Because you know what? You might not be. And that goes with me too. I might not be fully informed. And that's why I keep looking, keep listening, keep looking. Keep my shit together and keep looking, keep listening. Come across what I believe is absolute solid, truthful, helpful information. And then I get it out to you guys. there you go. I gotta get out of this indoor zone. I can't wait to get back into the mountains. Holy shit. Apparently there's snow's dumping up there. It's gonna be cold. It's gonna be cold and nasty. And it kind of makes you go, whoa. When I think about it when I'm home and I think about how the discomfort of the cold coming, it makes me feel ugh here. But once I get up there, it's almost like you just get in some kind of a, I don't know what you call it, a trance in a way, and it doesn't even bother me. You're just too excited and too into what you're doing, and you just keep going, and you don't skip a beat, and you enjoy every second you can. Anyway, lots of babbling today, right? More voices. Let's go see if I can find the picture of that Jeep, because it's not in here, and I'll post them up with this experience. And share my story at howtohunt.com. Get your experience off your chest if you need to, all right? This is a good place to do it. There's many other places to do it too. And the backup channel is, why do I always forget it? The Roundtable Knowledge by HTH is the backup channel. It's sitting there ready to go for when I get my next spanking. Bring it. Talk to you guys later.